Hi everyone, welcome to another webinar from BlueFletch. My name is Patrick, and today I'm going to cover how to do a no-touch migration from Workspace One to Microsoft's Intune. We've heard a lot of customers that are looking to check out Intune as their potential future EMM for device management. And they've often asked, what's the best way to migrate our devices from our existing EMM to Intune without having to go and touch every device, scan a barcode, and enroll them into Intune? Well, today I'm going to show you a process to do that all automatically over the air for your devices that are already enrolled in your existing EMM. This demo will focus on Zebra devices and Workspace One, but this same process could be reused with other options and combinations as well. So we'll switch over to my desktop now, and I'll show you how to configure this and test it out in your own environment. All right. First things first, we've got an Android Zebra device running Android 11 enrolled in Workspace One. This device is locked down with the BlueFletch launcher, but this process could be used in a device of really any state. First, we're going to look at a blog post from Zebra, which describes the process minus a few key points that we're looking to add. All right, so this article outlines the steps and can be used on any device with Android 8 Plus running Google mobile services. This process will no longer work starting with Android 13. However, most devices that we come across are still on Android 10 and 11, and this is a great opportunity to leverage this process during that. So you'll see we first need to make sure we have the Stage Now package builder on our desktop. And then we're going to create at least 4 different steps to facilitate this migration. The first step will be to connect to a Wi-Fi network, then download the new Intune agent, install that agent, and then run an intent to enroll into Intune. So these are steps that we want to occur on the device after it comes back from a reset. The device, as we mentioned, is currently enrolled in Workspace One, so we'll be able to deliver these steps to the device and then trigger a reset. And upon reset, the device will then go apply the steps in this serial order. This is what Zebra calls persistent storage. So these tasks and these processes are set as persistent in the device, which means they will be retained regardless of the reset of the device, as long as it is an enterprise reset and not a factory reset. I'll link this Zebra article in our blog post that accompanies this webinar. But for now, I'm going to switch over to my Stage Now machine and show you how I built this for testing. So, similar to how Zebra laid out their blog post, we'll have a Wi-Fi step, a file manager step, app manager, an intent, and then there'll be one more key step at the end called persist. If you're familiar with Stage Now, you can use what they call their expert mode to determine each of these steps and set their order that you want them to process. The first step in ours is going to be our Wi-Fi step, and I've added a second one to speed up the process that will force the connection to the newly added Wi-Fi network. As mentioned, we'll use the file manager to go download a file, app manager to install an app, intent to run the enrollment script with the Intune credentials, and then finally a persistent manager, which tells the device to store everything that it previously executed in persistent storage so that it can be rerun again in the future. As mentioned, the first step will be to set the Wi-Fi to never sleep, enable it, and then add a network that you'll see is just based on what I'm using here in our office. This Wi-Fi network has a pre-shared key, which I would recommend for simplicity in this process. I would avoid using certificate-based Wi-Fi networks. As mentioned, I want to make sure this Wi-Fi connects immediately. So what I'll tell the device to do is to go connect to an existing network, which was added in step 1, and then I'll just name that SSID again. All right. This is where we will go and download the Intune device policy or device policy controller. You'll see from the blog post that I link that the path to download that app is actually made publicly available from the Google Play Store. And we'll pass in the identifier setup that we want it to go download the setup agent. We'll store this just on the root of the SD card and name it Android Device Policy APK. We'll then install the newly downloaded application. And we're told by Zebra to use the upgrade action instead of install to prevent any issues with existing device policy controllers. Using this method, we'll install the application with all the required permissions. Next up will be the intent service. So we will set the action to enroll as device owner. We'll name the package name that was just installed, and we'll also name the class that we want to reference for the intent. And then in the JSON values, we'll pass in a JSON value that we will create called Intune enroll, or really any file name. The contents of that JSON will depend on the environment you will be enrolling to. So when you have your Intune environment set up and you set up an enrollment process, you'll be given a token that can be input. To show you that quickly, let's jump over to Intune and go ahead and create a landing space for these devices once they enroll. So looking at Android, under Devices, Android, we'll go to Android Enrollment. Set up an enrollment profile for corporate-owned dedicated devices. We'll create a new profile. We'll call it Zebra Enrollment, but this can be anything. And for this demo, we're just going to use non-shared device mode, just normal. We'll set an expiration date for the token. We'll put that into the future. Click Next and Generate. You'll see that has created that profile. And if we open the newly created profile, we'll jump over to the token section. And show the token where you'll see that value that we need to create our JSON file with. That will replace in this JSON file. And then if we jump back over to Stage Now, we'll just upload that from our local machine into Stage Now, and it will encrypt that JSON and package it up with these barcodes. The last step is what is called the Persist Manager. And this is arguably the most important part of this process. What we need to do is say everything that is just processed on the device from this Stage Now profile must persist to be rerun after each enterprise reset. We can give it a name, though the name is not extremely important, and we'll make sure it persists as order 0, which means it will process first on the device. Lastly, extremely important, you must select persist if error. This means we want the XML to persist even if any error occurs in the previous steps during application of the StageNow profile. I'll get into why this is important later, but please make sure you select this for all your testing and migration purposes. Once you're done with these 6 steps, you'll click Complete Profile, and you'll see that a barcode gets generated that can be used for testing. If we click that barcode and then select Test, a PDF gets generated with many barcodes that can be scanned. This is a great way to test locally without the involvement of Workspace One to see if your profile is going to work. In my testing process, I made sure to have a device similar to this one that we looked at earlier with StageNow accessible. When you click StageNow, you'll be prompted to scan those barcodes from your device, which will trigger the steps we just set: the Wi-Fi, download, install, and intent. I would recommend doing this before spending any time in Workspace One to prove out that your actual XML process from StageNow works as desired. You should see that if these barcodes are scanned and an enterprise reset is done on the device, it will come back and enroll immediately in Intune. Here's what that would look like. After testing successfully, we'll now want to test this over the air from Workspace One. So going back to StageNow, you'll see there's also an option to export for MDM. We'll select this option and save it locally. To our device, our local machine. It will be exported successfully, and now we're ready to test this out in Workspace One. So while I log in, we're now in the Workspace One console, and as mentioned, our device is enrolled in this console and is under management of Workspace One. So anything that we deliver from Workspace One to this device should be applied. The first step we need to do is actually take that XML that we just generated from the StageNow server and upload it to Workspace One. To do that for the Android system, we'll go to Devices, Components, and then File Actions. We'll create a new file action for Android, and the first step will be to upload the XML file we just generated. I'll select that file now. Click Save. And I'll be prompted to set a path locally on the device. I prefer to use SD card download because it is safe from the scope storage and it's a shared area where applications can access if they've been given the external storage permission. When I click save, you'll see the path gets set. And then we need to go to manifest and actually tell Workspace One to apply the XML that we just uploaded. So going to manifest, we'll say apply custom settings. And since there's only the one XML, it's already pre-selected. We'll select save. Save one more time. Oops. We got to give that file action a name. So let's call it the same name. No touch migration. And save that. So now that file action is available for us to assign in Workspace One. And the way to do that is also in Devices, Provisioning, go over to Product List View and create a new product. Again, this is an Android process. We'll select Android and we'll call it No Touch Migration. In the manifest, we'll select the newly created file action that we just made and we'll call it Install. We'll filter to No Touch Migration and click Save. Since this does not need to persist from Workspace One point of view, because Workspace One is not going to be involved in this process, Stage Now is actually going to be responsible for persisting. You don't have to click this checkbox in this step. You can, it won't actually impact anything, but not required since we actually told Stage Now to do the persistence for us. We'll click Save. And then under General, we can then assign it to our device that we want to migrate. I'll go ahead and just select this demo and then activate. So once you activate, this will then get delivered to the device automatically. Sorry, I need to use a different smart group, I realized. We'll just select all devices for simplicity. We'll click Activate, and this will deploy to all of the devices in this BlueFletch test environment. Of course, you would want to test this on a single device and then scale up after that. So we enable that, and it will then be delivered to the device. It's important to note that this process is actually going to fail on the first time through. The reason for that is because you might remember one of the steps on the intent step was to set as device owner and pass in the Intune credentials. With Android Enterprise, you're only allowed to have a single device owner on a device. And so this XML will actually run while Workspace One is still the device owner, and therefore will fail on this step, number 5, on the enrollment to Intune. That's okay. We expect that to happen. And that's, as I mentioned, why we must, on the persist manager, make sure that we persist even if there's an error. What's going to happen is that we'll fail, but it'll still set the XML in persistence to be run on subsequent enterprise resets. And on an enterprise reset, the Workspace One agent will not be on the device anymore, and therefore will not be the device owner, so that this process can complete end-to-end successfully. Let's see if it's had a chance to deliver to my device in Workspace One. I'll look at the product section. I'll see that it's delivered. It's not yet complete. Let's give it just a second. And as I mentioned, it failed. That's okay. If we're confident in our testing, we know that triggering an enterprise reset will force this to work. So, to do an enterprise reset, I recommend getting the enterprise reset zip file from Zebra directly and using that to apply to the device so that it can also be set up as a product in the provisioning section. So I've already created that, as I mentioned, with the enterprise reset file action. And we'll go ahead and add my new device to that assignment group. Let's click Save. And we should see that this device will shortly trigger the enterprise reset and go into an offline mode. And there we go. You'll see the device just shut down itself and went into its enterprise reset mode. Now that this device has successfully gone through an enterprise reset, it will no longer report to the Workspace One console. This means the device is no longer under management from Workspace One, and during this temporary period of outage, there will be no management of the device at all until it comes enrolled into Intune. If we jump over to the Intune portal, we can expect to see this device enroll in just a minute. This device will show up in the Android section as a dedicated device based on the enrollment profile we set earlier. The device hasn't yet appeared, but it will shortly, and will then begin to apply all of the configuration profiles that we have set in Intune and assigned to the group that the device will land in. The device is now fully under management in Intune and will no longer report to Workspace One, as I mentioned. I would recommend in Workspace One, deleting the device, even though it's not still enrolled, it will unenroll and will no longer be listed in Workspace One as an active device. So this device that we just did the seamless migration for is now fully enrolled in Intune and appearing in the Intune portal. You can see that the device was enrolled as of today, the Zebra TC53, and the same serial number we just had in Intune. I never once touched the device, and all of this happened from a remote console on the device. Now that you have a process to seamlessly migrate your devices from a legacy EMM to Intune, you'll need to make sure that Intune provides all the benefits and lockdown features to give you the same security and user experience that you want on your shared Android devices. I hope this demo was beneficial and can be helpful to you and your company. If you have any questions on Intune management, we're happy to provide our guidance there as well. Please contact us and let us know if you have any questions or want to learn more about this process. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope it was helpful.